There she goes again, staring at me with those creepy, depressing eyes of hers. Why does she always stare at me like that from across the room? I mean, I only stopped some bullies from harassing her, but that was months ago. Did she take that personally? Did I make things worse? Was it so bad that she resents me to her core? I started to notice this trend with her recently. At first, I thought I was just seeing things, thinking it was pure coincidence. But no, she actually is staring at me. It's a good thing we only share a single college class together. Otherwise, I wouldn't know what to do with myself. I sometimes wonder if she's just shy and can't muster up the courage to say something to me. But that's just some delusion I have in my head. I honestly won't ever know unless either I go up to her or she takes the first step. But do I really want to do that? Not really. I already have plenty of things to think about, and adding her to it would just stress me out more. If it wasn't for this other girl I met at the beginning of the semester, Lily, I probably would have been failing this art class. They expect us to create a new piece every week, which is crazy. Ironically enough, because of this crazy schedule, I had to stay late one day, which was when I ended up saving the weird girl. After both Lilies in my classes ended, we walked over to the cafeteria to grab a bite to eat. I honestly never eat cafeteria food, considering it's so expensive for no reason, but because I wanted to let Lily know what's been going on, I sucked it up. While waiting in line, I brought up that I wanted some advice about a girl. I didn't say what kind of advice, but you could tell that Lily's eyes glistened with excitement. She probably thought I was going to ask her about romance or who I like. Knowing her, that is guaranteed, unfortunately. When we got to the table to eat, she brought it up first and asked who the girl was and how I met her. You could tell that she wanted to know everything about it. I revealed that this wasn't advice about romance and that it was about a weird girl who started staring at me after I helped her with some bullies who were picking on her. Her glistening eyes faded into disbelief and boredom. I figured that was going to be her reaction. Lily poked at her salad, clearly disappointed by the lack of juicy gossip, while I tried to figure out what to do next. She suddenly and bluntly said I should just confront her. I honestly didn't think she was going to suggest something so simple. But then again, it was the most logical approach. There is no reason why that should be complicated to begin with. I agreed with her. Her expression and composure changed. She started to mumble something. I couldn't really make out what it was, but she seemed to muster up the courage to clarify. She asked if I wanted to hang out and get some coffee or something. I was pretty surprised, but not opposed to the suggestion. Thinking about it, I never really hung out with Lily outside of school. We were always busy with something, or it was just awkward more than anything. I like to believe that we both didn't know how to approach something like hanging out, but then again, it could just be me being oblivious. I agreed with her suggestion about getting coffee and followed up with a, "Where and what time?" We both mutually agreed that it would have to be a place that we've never tried before. Eventually, we ended up sitting in the cafeteria for about an hour and a half trying to figure out a good place nearby. I told her it couldn't be too fancy, otherwise I would be breaking the bank. She also agreed with that. Given our situation as college students, it was understandable that our financial situation may not be ideal. After mutually agreeing on a place, we both marked it on our calendars. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I saw the weird girl from my class in the cafeteria line. It was hard to tell if she was staring at me again, but I quickly tapped Lily's hand and pointed towards the line with my eyes. She was confused at first, but then picked up on what I was trying to tell her. To prevent any misunderstanding, I clarified that the girl currently in the lunch line was the same girl I mentioned earlier. Lily picked up what I was doing and looked over my shoulder. I asked her if the girl was staring at me. Lily looked back at me with confusion and said that it seemed she was staring at her instead, which confused both of us. Why would she be staring at Lily all of a sudden? Lily smiled and waved at her nonchalantly. I was surprised. I asked her why she did that. She told me it's a good way to let other people know they are being noticed. I guess it's a way to deter people to think that they're being sneaky but are caught being so. Lily told me that the girl looked away, which seemed to help remediate the situation, but who knows. I thanked Lily for her help, but then she said she was going to go a little further and confront the girl personally. I guess I wouldn't mind, but that seemed a little too much. She insisted it was the best way to ensure that the girl knew her place. Seeing Lily get fired up about it freaked me out a bit, but not in a bad way by any means. As Lily stood up and started to make her way towards the girl, I couldn't help but feel a mix of apprehension and curiosity. What was she planning to say? How would the girl react? Part of me wanted to stop Lily, to tell her that it wasn't worth the trouble, but another part of me was dying to see how it would play out. I watched as Lily weaved her way through the crowded cafeteria, her determined stride a stark contrast to my hesitant thoughts. When Lily reached the girl, I could see them exchange a few words. The girl's expression shifted from surprise to what seemed like a mix of confusion and embarrassment. Lily gestured towards the table, and for a moment I thought she was going to bring the girl over to us. My heart raced at the thought of having to face her directly, but then the girl shook her head and quickly turned away, disappearing into the throng of students. Lily came back, a triumphant yet slightly puzzled look on her face. She plopped down to her seat and took a sip of her drink before speaking. She explained to me that it was a misunderstanding, that the girl was really trying to thank me for saving her from the bullies. Suddenly, Lily teased me about being a hero of some sort, but I tried to brush it off as not a big deal. Lily brought back the conversation to our little date and confirmed the place once more. She gave me a look of excitement and said her goodbyes, leaving me by myself. I spent the rest of my time just doom scrolling through social media for a bit, but out of nowhere, I feel a tap on my shoulder. I didn't notice their presence, but most likely due to how loud the cafeteria can get. I turned around to find it was the same weird girl who was glaring at me a few minutes ago. I thought Lily scared her off, but I guess that didn't faze her. I could see from the look in her eyes that she wanted to say something to me, but couldn't muster up the courage to say it. So instead of waiting around, I asked her if she wanted anything from me. I also brought up the fact that she was freaking me out due to how she was staring at me. She quickly apologized and didn't mean anything by it. She explained to me that she gets really nervous around men in general, so it was hard for her to say anything. I guess that explains a lot. She then proceeded to explain that she's been trying to thank me for what I did a while ago and wants to repay me somehow. I told her that there's no need and a thank you would suffice. Her face told me that that wasn't an answer she wanted to hear. She looked upset at my response and pushed that she has to do something. I guess to her a simple thanks wasn't good enough. She then suggested that she could treat me to a home-cooked meal at her place. This was kind of weird considering that normally someone would just invite you out to a popular place. Being invited to someone's home for a meal is, to say at least, too personal. I told her that this was too much and I didn't want to impose on her since I know cooking can be such a hassle. She explained to me that she didn't have a lot of money, so taking me out to a nice dinner was a bit out of her budget. I guess that would explain why she invited me to her place. Cooking something would be cheaper. I asked her when she would like to come over, and she gave me the same date of when Lily and myself were supposed to go get a coffee. I hesitated with my response, trying to figure out how to tell her, but she then followed up by saying that it would be quick and wouldn't take too long. I was a bit hesitant regardless of how long it would actually take, but if it means that she would leave me alone, I guess it wouldn't hurt. I agreed before I could overthink it. We exchanged numbers, and within seconds my phone buzzed with a few messages from her containing the address. Seeing it typed out, an actual location tied to a real house, made everything feel more concrete than I expected. From that moment on, our conversation shifted almost entirely to text. That was when I learned her name was Roxanne. It felt a bit strange that I hadn't even known it before agreeing to come over. Over messages though, she seemed different, less stiff, less distant. Words came easier to her through a screen. She told me she was taking the art class as part of her degree requirements. Something about pursuing a master's degree in arts. I couldn't remember the exact title she used, but it was clear she was really serious about it. I respected that. Compared to her, I was just fulfilling a creative credit requirement for my own degree, something I barely cared about beyond passing. She spoke about composition and emotional tone like they were tangible forces. I mostly just worried about meeting deadlines. The more we text, the more she opened up. It made sense, I supposed, considering how nervous she claimed to be around men in person, behind a screen, she didn't have to make eye contact. She didn't have to fight through hesitation. She could curate her thoughts before sending them. The week passed in steady exchanges of messages, some about class, some about food, some about nothing in particular, until the weekend finally arrived. The same day Lily and I had planned to get coffee. I wasn't much of a morning person, but brunch didn't sound terrible, and if Roxanne cooked as often as she implied she did, it would probably turn out fine. At least that's what I told myself. I woke up earlier than usual and instinctively grabbed my phone. There was a message from Roxanne sent around 9 a.m. telling me that she was already preparing everything and hoped I was hungry. There was something oddly intense about that, but I brushed it off. Without thinking much, I texted Lily. I jokingly told her that depending on how amazing Roxanne's cooking turned out, I might just skip coffee altogether. I even added that I could already imagine how incredible it would be. Home-cooked meals always beat overpriced lattes anyways. Lily replied almost immediately, telling me that if I dared skip out on her, she would beat me up herself. I could practically picture her fake glare through the screen. She followed it up with a laughing emoji, but I knew she meant it at least a little. The idea of bailing on her felt wrong, but I reassured myself that this would be quick. Roxanne had said so herself. As I drove over, the city shifted from campus bustle to something quieter. Roxanne's neighborhood was surprisingly normal. Victorian-style houses lined the streets, their pointed roofs and decorative trim giving the block an old-world charm. The paint on some of them was chipped. Others looked freshly restored. There were cars parked neatly along the curb and the sidewalks were clean. It felt like the kind of place families lived in, safe, predictable. That made me feel slightly better. I parked along the street and sat in the car for a moment longer than necessary. My reflection in the rear view mirror looked more anxious than I expected. This would be my first time I'd ever gone to a stranger's house like this. Sure, we had talked for a week, but texting wasn't the same as knowing someone. My heart was beating harder than it should have been. I told myself to relax. She was just a shy art student. When I finally approached the door, my footsteps sounded louder than they should have. Before I even knocked, the door swung open. Roxanne stood there smiling, not the nervous, distant smile she wore in class. This was bright, eager, almost glowing. She looked different in her own space, more confident, like she had stepped into her natural habitat. As I entered, the first thing I noticed was the walls. Paintings. Everywhere. Landscapes, portraits, abstract swirls of color layered over one another. Some were framed, and some were not. Some were stacked against the walls, as if she hadn't decided where to hang them yet. There were so many that the house didn't feel decorated. It felt consumed. And yet, something was missing. No family photos, no childhood snapshots, no graduation frames, no visual history of a life lived, just paint. It was as if her entire existence began and ended on a canvas. She led me to the dining table and asked me to sit. I could hear her moving around in the kitchen, metal clinging softly, the sound of something simmering. The house itself was quiet in a heavy way, like it absorbed sound. When she brought the food out, I had to admit it looked incredible. Carefully plated, balanced colors. Even the way she arranged it looked artistic. I took my first bite, and I was genuinely impressed. It tasted far better than I expected. Warm, comforting, almost nostalgic. I told her it was good. Really good. We ate, and I asked her about her living situation. I don't know why I asked. Maybe I was trying to make conversation. Maybe I was trying to ground myself in normalcy. She told me her parents had died a few months ago after she graduated high school. The house was inherited. No close relatives, no siblings, no one she kept in contact with. She had been alone since then, just painting, studying, existing. I felt something twist in my chest. Suddenly, the whole house made sense. The absence of photographs, the saturation of art. When I lifted my fork again, my thoughts were distracted, heavy with sympathy. That's when I spilled my food on my shirt. It happened so quickly, a careless motion. a blotch spreading across the fabric. Roxanne reacted instantly, almost too instantly. Panic flashed across her face. She insisted she wash it, said it would stain, told me to follow her in the basement where the washer was. I hesitated, but it felt rude to refuse, and honestly, I felt bad. She had just told me about her parents. The least I could do was let her help. We walked toward the basement. The stairwell was dark. She explained that the light switch was at the bottom because it was an older vintage home design. We would have to walk down first. The steps creaked under our weight. The darkness felt thick. I could barely see the outline of her in front of me. I remember thinking that it was strange how quiet the house became once we started descending. Even the sounds from upstairs seemed distant. Then, a sudden, crushing impact at the back of my head. There wasn't time to react, no time to process. Just darkness. When I opened my eyes again, my skull throbbed with a deep, nauseating pain. The world felt unstable. I tried to move, but metal clanged around me. Bars. Cold. Close. I was inside a metal cage. The basement was lit now, dimly, casting long shadows across the walls. Blank canvases leaned in stacks. Paint splattered the concrete floor in chaotic patterns. It looked less like a laundry room and more like an art studio. My breath quickened. Roxanne stood just outside the cage. She looked happy. Not nervous, not shy. Radiant. She explained, almost sweetly, that she had never had a boyfriend before. No man had ever been kind to her the way I have been. No one had protected her. No one has ever accepted her invitation into her home. And to her, my acceptance meant agreement. Agreement to belong to her. Forever. My stomach dropped. I told her she was insane. That this was wrong. That she had to let me go. But she didn't look angry. She looked confused that I was upset. She reassured me that no one could hear me scream down here. The basement was insulated. She said she would feed me, take care of me, paint us. She said I didn't have to worry about anything ever again. The realization settled slowly, suffocatingly. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't nerves. This wasn't gratitude taken too far. I replayed every moment in my head. The staring, the text, the invitation, the coincidence of the date, the way she insisted it wouldn't take long, the absence of family, the overwhelming number of paintings. Had she painted this scenario before? Had I been imagined long before I ever stepped inside? The metal bars were unyielding under my grip. My head still throbbed. My phone was gone. Upstairs, the world continued as normal. Lily was probably waiting for coffee. Students were probably walking to brunch. Cars were passing by on a quiet Victorian street. And I was down here. In her basement. In her studio. Her boyfriend. The air felt thinner with each breath. I wondered if anyone would notice if I was gone quickly enough. I wonder if Roxanne had planned for that too. As she hummed softly and began setting up a blank canvas nearby, I realized something horrifying. To her, this was romantic. To me, this was a cage. And as the minutes stretched endlessly, one question echoed louder than any scream I could make. Was I going to be stuck here forever?